What's going on, everyone? It's Justin here, and today I've got a review of Samsung's new flagship phone for 2018, and that is the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. So I was actually in New York for Samsung's Unpacked event where they introduced this new phone and had early access with it. And I will say that right off the bat, Samsung already had an incredible phone for last year, which is the Note 8. But this year it was more of an incremental upgrade of the spec sheet, some new features that were added that makes it once again one of the best and most powerful phones for 2018. If you guys are excited for some more smartphone videos that are coming up in the next couple months though and want me to possibly do a giveaway of one, make sure you subscribe to the channel, drop a like on this video, and drop a comment down below as I'd love to know what your favorite feature of the Note 9 is. I think this is the phone that Samsung has really just had a lot of fun with over the years in putting their very best technologies and feature into one device. For starters, they have a ton of space to work with when it comes to real estate, but they're also able to price it at a very premium price point where people who know what they want know exactly what they want and what to expect out of the Note line. This year, some of the improvements include a 6.4-inch display, which is ever so slightly larger than last year, but is probably one of the best screens on the market at the moment still. A larger 4000 mAh battery, an upgraded Snapdragon 845 processor for this year, and it also comes in a base storage configuration of 128 gigs paired with 6 gigs of RAM, and also a 512 gig option with 8 gigs of RAM. I think what's even crazier though is that this year there's still microSD expandability, which gives you up to 1 terabyte of storage on a smartphone, and SanDisk currently does make SD cards that are up to that size. I mean, I personally got like 8,000 photos on my main smartphone, and I'm really only using about 120 gigs, so I think 1 terabyte is insane. I think being a smartphone that is pretty much perfect for any content creator or also artist with the S Pen, having that much space and a great spec sheet just makes it a powerhouse. On top of that, it's also great to still see a headphone jack on the bottom as well as an S Pen because of just the amount of space that this phone has, but otherwise the design for the most part stays almost exactly the same as the previous year. And I think as they all say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and they've done that once again here, and the Samsung Galaxy Note 8 was already one of the most beautiful phones on the market, and if you look at the S line over the past few years, it has also stayed pretty much the same ever since Samsung introduced glass in the S6. This year it's available in 4 different colors, and my personal favorite in the past has been the black, but I think this year I really like the blue paired with the yellow S Pen. For some reason, I think yellow and blue just goes very well together, as you guys can probably see from this fit pic, whether you want to compare it to IKEA or Best Buy. But the S Pen also saw some pretty nice improvements this year, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about later. With a beautiful Corning Gorilla Glass on the front and back, the one thing that you might want to be a bit careful about, especially if this is your daily smartphone, is scratches and cracks. So if you guys want to go ahead and get a dbrand skin for a cool color, texture, or just something unique with your smartphone, then go ahead and check out dbrand, and I'll leave a link to that down below. This year, the fingerprint sensor has also been moved down a little bit, and I will say that even though it is better than being on the side and next to the camera, it is still at a place that for people with smaller hands might find it a little bit hard to reach on the back. I would have liked to have seen Samsung try something such as a fingerprint sensor that is integrated into the sleep wake or power button or even the Bixby button, just to give it another purpose. With gaming being one of the big focuses of the Note 9 though, because of its large screen and everything, Samsung has also introduced water carbon cooling on this device, and although we don't know too much about it, it essentially just has a better way to disperse the heat throughout the big surface area of the device. On paper, this is pretty much the most powerful phone that you can get when it comes to the display paired up with the RAM as well as the processor and GPU. So if you're going to be pushing it to the max and having that large battery as well, then it's nice to see that Samsung has taken into consideration the cooling process of a smartphone, which is something that you don't see that often. Samsung has always had some of the best displays on the smartphone when it comes to brightness, the vibrance, and everything about it. And this year we have a 2960 by 1440 resolution 6.4-inch display, so it is just ever so slightly larger than last year, but the device itself in terms of form factor is almost the same, just a tiny bit larger once again. The Super AMOLED display is absolutely incredible, and although it isn't the best for color representation, when it comes to just a pleasant, bright, and sharp, vibrant display, this is definitely the best that I've ever tried out. It still has the always-on features as well as HDR10 compatibility, but just looking at the screen itself, even through video that you guys are seeing right now, you can just tell it's so beautiful, especially at this size. Just due to the form factor, this also makes it one of the best phones when it comes to gaming. You have a bezel that is relatively small on both sides, but no notch. So when you hold your phone, it is a natural position to have the game fill up the entire screen. And with Fortnite made available exclusively on launch to the Galaxy devices, you're really able to enjoy the best of the best with a phone that is totally capable. Although I'm pretty ashamed to say that I've never played Fortnite until now as a millennial, I tried it on the Note 9 and expectantly it worked very well. When it comes to software, the Galaxy Note 9 ships with Android 8.1 Oreo, the latest and greatest, and this device with its spec sheet functions very smoothly with the 8 gigs of RAM that you can get on the Max model. And although TouchWiz does have a lot of Samsung exclusive features to the device that I personally don't find myself using that much, the experience was smooth and very pleasant. The notifications and everything were where you expect them to, the quick toggle settings, the always on display, and I do honestly feel like the software is taking advantage of all of the hardware and everything that Samsung is trying to offer, and especially with S Pen integration, it's very important that there are features introduced aside from just being a stylus. Although Samsung did spend some more time talking about Bixby and how it's been improved, it's still not something that I use that much, and it's probably one of the features that I would want eliminated on the smartphone and just have Google Assistant. In fact, at the event itself, they actually tried to demonstrate it and it didn't exactly work the first time, similar to Apple's Siri demonstration at the Apple event. Aside from all the expected features that you're used to on the S Pen, including being able to write on your display as soon as you take the pen out, being able to draw on your screenshots very easily right on the screen, do a live message, translations, pen up, and even have a lot of apps that are compatible with taking advantage of the pen. This year, one of the best new features that has been introduced on the S Pen that I personally will find myself using a lot is Bluetooth 4.0 that has the S Pen work almost as a remote. So for example, if you want to take a photo and you don't have a cameraman, you're able to trigger the camera using the button, and by double pressing, it will also switch between the front and back facing camera. But the options are also limitless, and if you want to change some of the features or functions with the S Pen remote, you're able to customize it for long press, short press, single press, double press. The Bluetooth on the S Pen is able to work from around 30 feet away max. One thing to keep in mind though is that with Bluetooth low energy, you will have to kind of charge the S Pen. It does take a bit of battery, but with 30 seconds of charge, you get up to 40 minutes of use, and I think for the most part, it's really not going to be an issue, especially with a larger battery this year. Although the S Pen isn't something that I find myself using as much as I would like to, it is definitely one of the features that Samsung introduced in the first generation Note when a lot of people were skeptical of a large smartphone, and have improved it over the years to the point where now it is a great feature in the device. As for the camera, Samsung already had a great one in the Note 8, and this year you really won't see that big of a change. On the hardware end, you have a 12 megapixel sensor with an f1.5 to 2.4 variable aperture, which we first saw as a world's first on the S9, and the secondary camera is still 12 megapixels with an f2.4 aperture, and that is a 2x optical zoom lens. I will say though, from a quality standpoint, the secondary camera is not as good as the primary camera. The primary camera on the Note 9 though looks really good in terms of quality, the sharpness, and just the vibrance, and if you just want that nice pop, then Samsung always does an amazing job. It's also very consistent, so when it comes to white balance, exposure, Samsung cameras and on the Note 9 did a good job in judging each scenario that I was trying to do. One thing that you will find on the Note 9 though, which is one of the AI features that they started to introduce a bit more in conjunction with Bixby, is an automatic scene optimizer when it comes to landscapes, portraits, and food for example, and also flaw detection. So it will let you know if you have to take another photo, if you notice that someone might have blinked in a photo when you're taking a selfie. Like I mentioned before though, being able to trigger the camera using the button on the S Pen is probably my favorite feature. As for video, the Note 9 is still able to record at 4K 60 frames per second, and the video is once again very crisp, sharp, vibrant, and the optical image stabilization that you're going to find on both lenses is always nice to see. The slow motion video also did a pretty good job, and overall the camera on the Note 9, although we didn't see that many major changes in hardware, is still probably going to be one of the best in the market for 2018. The 8 megapixel camera on the front is also able to do iris scanning and AR emoji, which personally I don't find myself using that much, but the camera quality itself is pretty good. And with the flaw detection feature, it does its best to try to get you that perfect selfie, especially if you've got that one friend who hates being in photos and blinks seemingly every single time on purpose. The autofocus on the front facing camera is something that you still don't see in every smartphone, which kind of confuses me, and it also shoots at an f1.7 aperture, letting plenty of light in. One thing that is pretty expected, and I'm very happy to see finally make its way over the Note line, is stereo speakers. We first saw this on the S9, and with Samsung smartphones having some of the best large displays on the market with headphone jacks and everything, it was really nice to finally see some stereo speakers instead of that single bottom firing speaker. The front-facing speakers on the Note 9 are AKG and Dolby Atmos optimized, and although that doesn't really mean too much to me, the sound quality itself is pretty good, and here's a quick sound test. When it comes to the battery life though, this is always something that you do worry about when you have a smartphone that seemingly focuses so much on offering the full experience for a power user. You've got a Snapdragon 845 processor, a large RAM, large storage, you've also got the S Pen to power, the great camera that is dual camera setup, and the AI, as well as not to forget the 6.4-inch display that is so high in resolution and in size, brightness, and everything. The upgrade in size to 4000 mAh while keeping the device almost as thin as it was last year definitely fixes one of the biggest complaints that we had in the previous generation, which was the fact that the battery life wasn't horrible, but it really wasn't good for a device that was so big and meant to be for the power user. The 4000 mAh battery this year definitely lives up to the claim of full day battery, and I noticed that. So by using this device for the entire day as a power user, I found myself being able to get through the entire day, not necessarily through to the second day, but a full day is really all I expect out of a device that I use as a main one. At the end of the day, what do I think of the Samsung Galaxy Note 9? And although it would have been easy to complain about the fact that many things weren't really upgraded on this device in a major way, I didn't really think they had to do much. The Note 8 was already a great phone in last year's market, and this year this phone is easily still going to be one of the best that you're going to see in 2018, especially with so many new things and rush to innovation with notches on screens and stuff that we saw last year. For a year that we're probably just going to see incremental upgrades from Apple and what we saw on the S9 and also on LG side as well, this device is still going to stand out as one of the best. It's got a great camera, great display, the specs are up to date, it's also got stereo speakers, a headphone jack, an S Pen and all the features that are tied to that, and also some of the best hardware on the market. Of course, the price point is not cheap, and if you want to save some money, you can always go for the Samsung Galaxy S9 for a flagship smartphone, with the majority part of it being the same experience with exception to the S Pen and the larger display. Otherwise, as always, if you guys have any questions, drop them down below and let me know your opinions of the Note 9, and I'll see you all in the next video.